in this particular case, the Republicans were right.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No, I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right? But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay?
Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back on The View and strongly criticized Sunny Hostin for defending the same woke ideas that many people believe contributed to the Democratic Party's major election defeat. It's widely understood that the party's increasingly extreme positions played a big part in their downfall last year. Still, Sunny continues to deny it, claiming these ideas had nothing to do with voters turning away. She keeps arguing that wokeness wasn't a key reason for their losses. Now, watch Stephen A. Smith break down her arguments one by one and explain how this constant push for those ideas helped lead to Harris's political collapse.
I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay? But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These
That's less than 1% of the population.
I understand that,
but you know what? Add Eric in the NFL.
But I think that's where the mistake is made. Yeah. You're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But most of the voters out there don't think like that. But that
means they don't have the information.
Okay, but 90% of the voters don't have the information.
It's surprising that so many people still overlook the main reason Kamala Harris and the DNC lost the election. Their constant push for woke ideas became the center of everything they did. All over the country, parents raised concerns that were ignored or treated as unimportant. Many families weren't comfortable with their young daughters sharing bathrooms with biological males, yet Democratic leaders kept insisting this was a new form of progress everyone should welcome. Parents also pushed back against girls being placed in sports competitions against biological males who had clear physical advantages. These frustrations weren't coming from small or extreme groups. They were coming from regular families in everyday homes across the nation. Instead of stopping to listen, the DNC doubled down and labeled anyone who disagreed as hateful or uninformed. That attitude pushed voters away. People want fairness, practicality, and leaders who understand real-world concerns, not ideological experiments disguised as moral growth.
If you're out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen to the news when you're in traffic.
Well, again, I agree with
not
that.
be uninformed.
Or you listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things that brings down your spirit. And that's unfortunately what most voters are doing.
Most Americans are too busy living their everyday lives to sit and analyze every political idea tossed at them. They work long hours, manage households, raise children, and try to keep up with bills. They don't have the time or energy to read long reports or watch panels of experts debate ideas that rarely help them in real life. So when something feels confusing or out of touch with what they face daily, they naturally vote against it, and honestly, it's understandable. Regular people aren't focused on identity debates or cultural trends pushed from Washington. They care about staying afloat, keeping their families stable, and being able to afford basic needs. They're stressed about the rising prices of food, rent, healthcare, and gas. They want safe neighborhoods, solid jobs, and a chance to live comfortably, not lectures about pronouns or niche theories taught in schools. In the end, real-life struggles matter more than political trendiness, and practical concerns always guide their votes.
Because you were inserted, even though you were the vice president and it was the Biden-Harris administration, you had folks who are independent. I'm not talking about those on the right, and I'm not talking about those on the left, just independents, who said, wait a minute, she didn't experience a primary either. And the last time we saw her in a primary was 4 years ago, and she didn't even make it to Iowa. They used that as an excuse to point to her level of inexperience. Then you got the war in Russia and Ukraine, you got the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Hamas and Hezbollah and all of that stuff. And you had Trump using codes. Look, do you want her? Where is she? Where's the interviews? Where's she showing herself? Where's the tough questions? Where's the interrogation? And he leaned on certain things.
In this segment, Stephen A. Smith doesn't simply criticize Kamala Harris, he completely breaks down what remains of her political image with direct, clear, and confident commentary. Harris never built real support with the public, even during her time as vice president. From the start, many people felt she was pushed onto voters rather than genuinely chosen, and that feeling grew stronger as her positions moved deeper into what many saw as extreme, woke territory. Smith explains how this shift pushed ordinary Americans away, especially those who were tired of political messages replacing real answers to their daily problems. He also calls out Harris for constantly avoiding tough interviews, the kind that show whether a leader has the courage, stability, and skill to handle difficult moments. Instead of proving herself, she stayed out of the spotlight, which only made people question her readiness even more. Smith's breakdown makes it clear why voters turned away. She seemed disconnected, untested, and ultimately brought down by her own overconfidence.
Does everybody remember he originally said he was just going to do it for 4 years?
Yeah.
That's what I brought up.
Right. And did you think that once you know who stepped in, he said, well, there's nobody, we don't have anybody?
Well, the point is that it's not about who you're going up against when you know you're not what you used to be. And see, this is where covering sports puts me at a distinct advantage. I cover people every day where it's time for you to go, but you're holding on and you don't want to leave. People who cover the world of sports are accustomed to seeing that all the time. You are the left, you leaned, and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centrist.
Stephen A. Smith explained it perfectly. The Democratic Party ended up trapped by its own most extreme voices, the group often referred to as the woke wing, which slowly pushed the entire party off balance. Instead of setting limits or challenging those radical ideas, most Democrats, even those in the center, stayed quiet. And that silence became its own message. To many everyday Americans, it looked like the whole party was moving in the same direction as the extreme activists, supporting ideas that felt strange, divisive, or even risky. By choosing not to speak up, Democrats allowed people to believe that wokeness had taken over their entire identity. When the election loss finally hit, those same leaders suddenly tried to claim they were never that extreme. But the damage was already done. Voters had made up their minds, the party seemed disconnected from basic common sense. As Smith pointed out, pretending nothing happened isn't a plan, it's proof of how far out of touch they had drifted.
The problem is those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want.
Yeah.
They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining and griping about it because they understand that when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls. And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you want as a result of it.
The progressive wing of the left eventually tightened its grip on Kamala Harris, leaving her with a difficult and unavoidable decision: follow their strict ideology or risk falling out of favor within her own party. In the end, she gave in quickly, which didn't surprise many people. The most activist-driven part of the Democratic Party has built a reputation for getting what it wants, not through open discussion or thoughtful debate, but through pressure, intimidation, and public shaming. Anyone who speaks up or questions their ideas is instantly labeled hateful, outdated, or unacceptably problematic. Careers, reputations, and years of hard work can be destroyed overnight. Faced with that environment, Harris chose to align herself fully with their agenda, believing that staying loyal to the woke faction would protect her from attacks and help secure her political future. But in doing so, she pushed away a huge number of everyday Americans. Instead of looking strong or independent, she seemed controlled, overly scripted, and disconnected from the concerns of ordinary families. What she thought would help her ended up weakening her completely. Voters saw through the performance, recognized the pandering, and rejected it. In the end, she didn't just lose support, she became another cautionary example of how embracing extreme politics can backfire on those who rely on it for survival.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No,
at this point?
I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay?
Yeah.
But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that.
No episode would feel complete without Sunny Hostin jumping in with her usual twists, and sure enough, she didn't disappoint. As expected, she misrepresented Stephen A. Smith's words, making it seem like he said something he never even suggested. At no point did Smith claim the Republican Party was extreme or fringe. That was a convenient distraction Sunny created to avoid addressing his main point. What Smith actually explained was clear: the most activist wing of the Democratic Party had taken control, pushing radical ideas and cultural battles that turned everyday Americans away. Instead of standing up to these extremes, Democrats allowed the party's image to be defined by them. Smith's argument showed that Republicans weren't fringe, they stepped in to fill a leadership gap left by Democrats. Sunny's attempt to twist his words didn't disprove his point. If anything, it made his message stronger, showing how the left's overreach allowed their opponents to take advantage.
So Howard Stern says that he wasn't confident that the country was ready to elect the first female president because he knows, quote, how men talk behind closed doors about us. So we're very privileged to have a great guy here today.
Yeah.
So what do men say about us behind closed doors?
Yeah.
Say it to our face.
Yeah.
Do tell.
I don't hide, so no worries there. Here's the deal. I respectfully disagree with Howard Stern, only from the standpoint that I wish he had been more specific. Why don't you say white men? Because let me tell you something about black men. We love our mamas.
I know that.
We love.
I truly believe it's time for America to move past the idea that leadership positions should be given to women just because they are women. Representation is important, no doubt, but gender alone should never decide who becomes president. Our country faces serious challenges: a shaky economy, border security concerns, failing healthcare, rising crime, and growing global competition. These problems require leaders who are capable, decisive, and focused on results, not symbolic gestures or surface-level political statements. When women step forward with the skills, intelligence, and resilience needed to handle the responsibilities of the presidency, America will absolutely support them. But earning that trust takes more than identity. It requires a proven ability to make tough decisions, inspire confidence, and deliver meaningful solutions. The Democratic Party's recent failures weren't about voters rejecting women or progress. Leaders like Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton struggled because they didn't show strong leadership or connect with everyday Americans. Instead of addressing urgent issues like inflation, crime, and border security, they focused on divisive identity politics and extreme ideology. Stephen A. Smith was right: the woke left had taken control, pulling the party further into radical positions. By refusing to step away from that influence, Democrats set themselves up for defeat. America is ready for a female president, but she must be chosen for her ability to lead, her clear vision, and her strength, not as a token or symbolic victory. Competence and leadership will always matter more than identity, and that's what voters will continue to demand.